I always joke that Spokane Valley is the kind of place where nothing really happens. It's quiet, predictable, and honestly a little boring. But I guess that's why Callie and I liked living here. We knew the streets, the apartment buildings, the usual hangout spots. Everything felt familiar. Safe. That's why I said yes so fast when Callie told me about this sleepover at her friend Alex's apartment. I'd never met him, but she knew him from her art class. "He's super chill," she said. "Kind of quiet, but nice, you'll like him." I believed her. Callie's the cautious one between us, so if she trusted someone, I usually did too. We got there around 6 in the evening. The sun was still out, but Alex's building already felt dim and kinda lifeless the moment we stepped inside. It was one of those old complexes with these long carpeted hallways that smell like dust and old coffee. Alex's door opened before we even knocked twice. "Hey," he said quietly. He was tall with messy dark hair and this weirdly blank expression. Not creepy, just awkward. His apartment smelled like cinnamon candles, which felt random considering he barely made eye contact. But everything inside looked normal enough. TV, couch, a stack of board games, some half-finished painting leaning against a wall. I relaxed a little. Callie bumped my shoulder. "See? Normal." "Yeah," I whispered. "Totally." Alex barely said anything while we set up blankets and snacks. He mostly hovered in the kitchen, shifting his weight like he wasn't used to having people over. Around 9 p.m., Callie nudged me again. "He's nervous," she whispered. "It's kinda cute." I wasn't sure I agreed. Something about him made me feel watched. Not in a horror movie way, just like he was studying us, measuring our reactions. Quiet people don't usually stare that much, but I told myself I was overthinking it. We played Mario Kart, made popcorn, and started a movie. Pretty ordinary stuff. Alex talked a little more once he got comfortable, but even then, he kept circling certain topics, like how he never gets visitors, and it's weird finally showing people the apartment, and the layout takes some getting used to. Normal words, but something in his tone felt off. Around midnight, Callie went to the bathroom. Alex and I sat in the living room. The movie paused. He looked at me suddenly. "Do you like it here?" The apartment?" I said. He nodded. "Yeah, it's nice." He stared at me like he was trying to read whether I meant it. Then he said something that made my stomach tighten. "Most people don't go into the back room, just letting you know." I blinked. "Okay." I wasn't planning to. He looked away quickly, almost embarrassed. "Sorry, I didn't mean that in a weird way. Except it was weird. Why bring it up?" Callie came back humming, totally oblivious, and Alex went quiet again. The uneasy feeling stayed. We ended up playing Truth or Dare just to pass time. Alex didn't want to play, but Callie insisted. She was trying to make him feel included. Halfway through, Callie dared me to grab another soda from the fridge. I rolled my eyes and got up. Passing the hallway, I noticed something. There was a door half hidden by a shelf. It was different from the others, older, with scratches near the handle, like someone had dragged something sharp across it. I paused. "Rachel?" I turned. Alex was standing right behind me, way too close. I hadn't even heard him move. "That door's stuck," he said softly. "Don't bother with it." I forced a laugh. "Dude, I was just looking." He didn't laugh. He didn't even blink. "Don't open it." I walked back to the couch, pretending it didn't bother me, even though my heart was beating way too fast. Callie mouthed, "You good?" I nodded, but I wasn't. Something was wrong in this apartment. I could feel it in the way Alex's eyes kept drifting to that hallway, the way he flinched every time we got too close to that door. By 1:30 a.m., we were getting tired. Callie and I set up our sleeping bags in the living room. Alex said, "I'm going to bed. If you need anything, just knock." He gave us a small smile, almost too small, like he had to force it, and went down the hallway. His bedroom door clicked shut. We waited. Then Callie whispered, "Rachel." You felt that too, right? I looked at her. The room? Her eyes widened. So you saw it. We both sat up. I don't know, I whispered. His reaction freaked me out. Callie nodded. I want to check it. Callie, no. We don't have to go inside. Just look. I should have stopped her. I should have insisted we go to sleep or lie to him or something. But curiosity, dangerous, stupid curiosity, got the better of both of us. So, slowly, quietly, we walked to the hallway. The old door was shut now, but the shelf wasn't fully covering it anymore. It looked like someone had moved it, or bumped into it, or pulled it. Callie reached for the knob. I whispered, "Don't." She turned it. It wasn't stuck at all. The door swung open with this low, deep creak. The smell hit first, not rot, not garbage, something chemical, sharp, like cleaning fluid. The room was small, maybe the size of a walk-in closet. Just a desk, an old chair, and a wall covered in photos. Not normal photos. Every single one was of a girl. Different girls, different ages. Some smiling, some crying, some running, like the picture had been taken from far away. Callie covered her mouth. Oh my God. I stepped inside despite every part of me screaming at me not to. The carpet felt stiff under my feet like it had been scrubbed too hard. The air tasted weird, like bleach. Then I saw the newest photo, Callie and me, taken earlier, tonight, through Alex's apartment window. My legs started shaking. Callie, we need to go, now. She backed up, eyes glossy. What the hell is this? Why does he have these? A floorboard creaked behind us. We both froze. Alex stood at the end of the hallway. No expression, no emotion. Just blank. What are you doing in there? He asked softly. Callie whispered my name so quietly I barely heard it. Alex stepped closer. I told you not to go in the room. His voice wasn't angry. That somehow made it worse. We're leaving, I said, my voice trembling. No, Alex replied. You're not. He moved faster than I expected. Callie grabbed my wrist and pulled me back into the living room. We bolted toward the front door, locked. The deadbolt wasn't on earlier. I swear it wasn't. Alex's footsteps were slow behind us, calm, like he wasn't in a hurry. Girls, he said gently. Come back. I didn't want it to go like this. Callie was crying now, fumbling with the lock. I shoved her aside, hands shaking so badly I could barely grip it. The metal scraped, clicked, stuck. Rachel, Alex said. Stop. I turned. He was holding something, a roll of duct tape. I screamed so loud my throat burned. Callie finally got the lock loose, yanked the door open, and we ran into the hallway barefoot, not caring how loud we were or who we woke up. We didn't stop. Not down the stairs. Not through the parking lot. Not even when we reached my car and I dropped my keys twice trying to unlock it. We drove to my house shaking so hard we couldn't talk. My parents freaked out, called 911, and we told everything. The room, the photos, Alex blocking the door. Police went to the apartment. Alex was gone. They found the room, the photos, a drawer full of women's ID cards, a burner phone with dozens of numbers, and a list. Callie's name, my name, both marked with the date of the sleepover. The police said we got lucky. That's the phrase they used. Like any of what happened could be associated with luck. It's been months and Alex still hasn't been found. Every time I hear footsteps in a hallway or someone knocks on a door too softly, my heart jumps. Callie and I don't talk about that night. Not fully. But we won't leave each other alone in any house anymore, even during the day. And sometimes, late at night when everything's quiet, I get this horrible feeling that Alex didn't plan to kill us, not right away. He planned to keep us, and maybe he still wants to. I used to think sleepovers were the safest thing in the world. You know, pizza, games, dumb jokes, staying up too late, waking up feeling half dead but still laughing about it. That's all I expected the night I stayed over at my friend Andrew's house in Nashville. I'd been there plenty of times before and nothing ever seemed weird. It was just a normal suburban home with the usual quiet streets, trimmed lawns, and neighbors who waved even when they didn't know you. But that night, man, it still plays back in my head like a video I can't shut off. It started as a sleepover. We were in his room upstairs messing around with a stupid horror game on his console. It wasn't even scary, but we kept pretending it was to freak each other out. I remember thinking how normal everything felt, how safe everything felt. His mom wasn't around. She worked nights, but his dad was home. I'd always liked his dad. Quiet, calm, kind of worn out looking, but still a good dude. Nothing about him ever told me that house was hiding something, but looking back there were signs. I just didn't understand them yet. Around 9 p.m., Andrew's dad knocked on the door and asked if we wanted snacks. His voice cracked a little like he'd just sprinted up the stairs. When he stepped into the room, he tried to smile, but his eyes were somewhere else. They were darting toward the hallway, down the stairs, back to us. Back, like he was checking the house every second. "Everything good?" Andrew asked him. His dad nodded too fast. Yeah, of course, just stay upstairs tonight, all right? Don't go near the basement." I thought he was just being dramatic. Some parents don't like kids wandering around late and waking people up. But the way Andrew stiffened told me this wasn't new, and it wasn't normal. After he went downstairs, I asked, "Dude, what's with him?" Andrew didn't answer right away. He picked at the blanket on his bed, shoulders tight. "It's nothing, he's just stressed." But he wouldn't look at me, and I didn't push it. We kept playing the game until about 10:30. That's when we heard something. A muffled thump. Faint, but heavy, like someone slammed into a wall. I thought it was the TV until I realized the TV was muted. Thump. Then another one, louder. "Is that your dog?" I asked. "We don't have a dog," Andrew whispered. We both froze. I don't know why, but the hairs on my arms lifted like my body understood something before my brain did. Another thump. This one shook the floor just a tiny bit. That's when I noticed something I never paid attention to before. A weird metallic rattling like chains being pulled tight. And it was coming from the lower level of the house. The basement. I swallowed hard. "Dude, what is—" Then we heard it. A roar. Not an animal roar, not wild like a bear or anything, but a human voice, shredded and furious, bursting through the floor like it was right beneath our feet. Andrew stood up so fast his chair fell backward. No, Dad," he yelled. He ran out of the room and I followed without even thinking. My heart was smashing against my ribs and every part of me wanted to run home, but my legs just followed him automatically. When we hit the bottom of the stairs, I realized Andrew's dad was already there, standing in front of the basement door, holding a heavy wooden board across it. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in an hour. His shirt was soaked in sweat, and his hands were shaking as he shoved the board against the door frame. "Dad," Andrew started. "Get back," his dad snapped. I'd never heard him raise his voice before. The basement door shook violently like something rammed into it from the other side. Hard. Dust drifted from the frame. Then came the snarling. Human, but not fully. Like someone had ripped the words out of their throat. Andrew's dad yelled over the noise. "Help me, both of you, hold the side." I froze. I didn't want to go near that door. Every part of my brain was screaming no. But Andrew grabbed the side of the board, and I couldn't leave him alone, so I grabbed the other end. "What's happening?" Andrew shouted at his dad. "Who's down there?" His dad's face twisted with this horrible mix of pain and guilt. His eyes were wet and his breath came fast and harsh. "It's your uncle," he said, "but it's not him anymore." Another slam hit the door so hard it made my teeth rattle. "He's sick," his dad continued, his voice cracking. "I tried to help him. I tried to keep everyone safe. I didn't know it would get this bad. I didn't know." The door cracked, a sharp crack right down the center. Andrew yelped. I felt my grip weaken. Inside my head, thoughts were spinning so fast I couldn't even hold on to them. What sickness is this? Why is he down there? Why didn't they call the cops? What if he gets out? Are we going to die? Then it happened. The entire door exploded outward. Wood splinters shot across the hallway. The board flew from our hands. Something huge slammed into Andrew's dad and sent him crashing into the wall. I fell back and hit the floor hard. My ears rang. Andrew screamed my name. And in the middle of the blown open doorway stood a man. But no, not really a man anymore. He was dirty, shirt ripped, hair wild, body shaking with rage. His eyes were open so wide the whites looked like they glowed. And in his hand, God, I still see it, he held a metal tool, like a broken pipe with a jagged edge. He locked eyes with Andrew, then with me, then with his brother, and he smiled. Not a human smile, a predator smile. Andrew's dad stumbled forward. Don't do this! His brother lunged at him. Everything blew apart, yelling, crashing, furniture being knocked over. Andrew grabbed my arm, screaming, "Run!" We sprinted into the kitchen. I slammed the door behind us, but it wouldn't matter. I could hear the uncle's footsteps, slow, confident, hunting footsteps. He wasn't breaking things anymore. He was searching. "Why is he doing this?" I whispered, shaking so hard I couldn't even feel my fingers. Andrew was crying and wiping his face with his sleeve. I don't know. Dad said he got sick last year. Something happened. He started hurting people. Dad kept him here to get better. That's what he said." "Why didn't he call someone?" "He said no one would understand. He said family fixes family." Footsteps creaked in the hallway outside the kitchen. Heavy ones. He was dragging the pipe on the wall as he walked. Slow scrape, scrape, scrape. Like he wanted us to hear him. I covered my mouth. My whole body felt like static. The kitchen door handle twitched. Andrew grabbed my wrist. "Come on, we have to move." We bolted through the kitchen toward the back hallway. The house felt like a maze, every shadow looking alive, every sound making me jump. The air smelled like sweat and dust and something metallic. We reached the living room just as something slammed into the kitchen door behind us. He was close. We ducked behind the couch. My chest felt tight, like my lungs forgot how to work. Andrew squeezed his hands into fists so hard his nails dug into his palms. "What if he finds us?" I whispered. "What if he doesn't?" Andrew whispered back. "What if he finds Dad first?" My heart sank. His dad? We left him back there. Before I could say anything, a loud crash came from the hallway. A yell, a struggle, something hitting drywall. Andrew shot up. "Dad!" "No, Andrew!" But he didn't listen. He ran toward the noise, and I had no choice but to follow him. We turned the corner just in time to see his dad fighting his brother with everything he had. The uncle swung the pipe wildly, smashing a picture frame. Glass sprayed the hallway. "Get out!" Andrew's dad shouted. "Now go!" But Andrew didn't move. He just stood there, trembling, staring at the uncle like his whole world was falling apart. The uncle spotted him and froze. His head tilted, slow, like he was studying prey. Then he moved toward Andrew. I reacted before I even processed it. I grabbed Andrew and yanked him back. "Go! Upstairs! Now!" We ran up the stairs 2 at a time. Behind us, the uncle charged after us. His steps were so heavy the railing shook. Andrew gasped. "He's coming! He's coming! He's coming!" I shoved him into his room and slammed the door. There was no lock, of course there wasn't. We pushed a dresser in front of it. My arms screamed with pain. Andrew shoved beside me, tears streaking his face. His uncle hit the door. Hard. The dresser shook. Andrew covered his ears, sobbing. I pressed my back to the dresser, using my whole weight, feeling every blow rattle through my spine. "Andrew!" His dad's voice screamed from downstairs. "Stay away from him." Another thud. The dresser slid an inch. Another. My head spun. My heartbeat felt like it was exploding inside my ears. Then silence. Dead, terrifying silence. We didn't move, we didn't breathe. Then, footsteps. Slow ones. Walking away. That somehow felt worse. After a full minute of quiet, Andrew whispered, "Where did he go?" I shook my head. I didn't know. I didn't want to know. A heavy crash from downstairs made both of us jump. It sounded like someone falling or being thrown. "Dad," Andrew whispered, voice cracking. I didn't say anything. I didn't have anything to say. We stayed frozen in that room for what felt like hours, but was probably just minutes. Every tiny sound felt like it could be him coming back. Eventually, sirens wailed in the distance. Someone must have called. A neighbor, maybe. Or maybe Andrew's dad managed to crawl outside. I don't know. We didn't leave the room until cops were shouting through the house. They found Andrew's uncle unconscious in the hallway. His dad collapsed beside him, barely holding on. They pulled us out, wrapped us in blankets, asked us questions we couldn't answer. I watched the house flash with red and blue lights. Andrew sat beside me, shaking, staring at nothing. His dad was taken away on a stretcher. His uncle, too, but surrounded by twice as many officers. I never went back there again. And now, whenever I hear a thump in the night and or someone drags something across a floor, and my whole body freezes. Because I keep thinking about that basement door and how it finally opened. I never used to get scared in other people's houses. Like growing up, I was the friend who'd crash anywhere, sleep on random couches, stay over without even packing a toothbrush. Houses always felt safe to me, warm, predictable, boring in the best way. But ever since that night at Sophie's place, the idea of being in someone else's home makes my stomach twist. Even now, if a room gets too quiet, I start imagining that slow, dragging sound again. Back then, I didn't know that a normal Tuesday could turn into the kind of memory that sticks to your brain like glue. I had just finished school and was bored out of my mind, so when Sophie texted me, "Come over, parents are stuck at the hospital with my sister," I didn't even hesitate. I'd known her for years, and her family's place was basically my second home. I wish I'd stayed in mine that day. When I got to her house in Denver, the first thing I noticed was how strangely quiet everything felt. Normally her place was loud, TV on, mom cooking, dog barking, but the living room that day felt heavy, like the air itself was tired. Sophie opened the door and I could tell right away something was off. Her eyes were puffy like she hadn't slept. "Are you okay?" I asked. She shrugged. "Yeah, just long night, come in." I stepped inside and realized the vibe was completely different from usual. A pair of hospital wristbands lay crumpled on the coffee table. A jacket I recognized as her mom's was thrown over the couch. There was this weird smell too, like the plastic scent from hospitals that sticks to your clothes. Before I could say anything else, the front door opened again and her parents walked in. They looked drained, like they'd been awake for days. With them was her older sister, Chloe. I hadn't seen Chloe in months. She used to be the funny, artsy type, always painting something or humming under her breath. But the girl who stepped inside wasn't that person. She didn't even look at us. She just stared straight ahead with this blank, glassy expression like she wasn't actually seeing anything. Her mom guided her up the stairs gently, talking under her breath. "It's okay, honey, you're home now." Chloe didn't say a word. Her dad lingered for a moment, his eyes flicking toward us. There was something in his expression, fear mixed with guilt, that made my stomach knot. "We need to go meet the doctor again," he said. "We'll be back in an hour or two." Sophie frowned. "You're leaving her alone already?" Her dad swallowed. "We don't have a choice right now." Then came the line that set the whole night in motion. He looked directly at Sophie and said, voice tight, "Do not disturb your sister no matter what, do you understand?" She nodded slowly. I didn't understand it at the time, but the way he said it, it was less of a warning and more of a plea. For the first 15 minutes after they left, it was fine. Too quiet, but fine. Sophie and I sat on the couch, the TV on low, both of us pretending nothing was weird, but her shoulders were stiff, and she kept chewing her thumbnail. "What happened?" I finally asked. She didn't look at me. "Chloe had a breakdown. At school. She hasn't talked since. Not to me, not to my parents." I didn't know what to say. This was way outside my experience. I mumbled something like, "I'm sorry," and she just nodded. I think we both wanted to pretend her sister wasn't upstairs at all. But then the noise started. It was soft at first, this dull, repetitive thump coming from the second floor. Not loud, not frantic. More like someone gently hitting the wall with the heel of their hand. Thump. Ooh, thump. Thump. I turned toward the ceiling. "What is that?" Sophie froze. She started doing that last night. The rhythm didn't speed up or slow down. It was steady, too steady. The kind that starts making your chest tighten because it sounds so controlled and empty at the same time. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe she dropped something. "No," Sophie whispered. "It's her. She sits on the edge of the bed and does that for hours, just rocking and hitting the wall." The thumping kept going, a metronome of dread. I didn't want to ask the next question, but the words slipped out. "Should we check on her?" Sophie shook her head fast. My dad said not to. "Yeah, but what if she's hurt or something?" Her jaw clenched. She stood up. "Oh, look, just stay here." I should have stopped her. But I didn't. I just sat there, gripping the edges of the couch, listening to her footsteps creak up the stairs. Then the thumping stopped. The sudden silence was worse somehow, like someone had just held their breath. I stared at the ceiling, waiting. Then I heard Sophie's voice from upstairs, soft, shaky. "Chloe?" Complete silence. 10 seconds passed, then 20, then maybe a full minute. My sense of time was melting. Finally, I heard Sophie come down the stairs fast, almost tripping. She looked pale. "What happened?" I asked. "She's just sitting there, staring at the wall, rocking, not blinking." I said her name like 5 times and she didn't even move. Her voice cracked. Her face didn't even twitch. My stomach dropped. We tried to go back to the living room like nothing happened, but every sound made us jump. The fridge humming, the TV clicking, even the heater kicking in. That was when we heard it. The creak of a door opening upstairs. Sophie's head snapped up. "That's her door." I shook my head. Maybe it was the house. "No," Sophie whispered. "That was her door." Footsteps followed. Slow ones. Uneven. The kind that sound like someone isn't fully aware of how to walk. My heart was punching the inside of my chest so hard I could barely breathe. "Where do we go?" I whispered. Sophie grabbed my wrist and pulled me toward the kitchen. "The pantry," she breathed. We slipped inside, closing the door until it was almost shut, but not completely, because a full click felt too loud. The pantry smelled like spices and old cereal. It was small enough that our knees touched as we crouched down. Then we heard her reach the bottom of the stairs. Not rushing, not angry. Just existing in this weird slow-motion nightmare way. Her footsteps moved into the kitchen. And then we saw her through the thin crack of the pantry door. She wasn't looking for us. She wasn't even scanning the room. She stared at the kitchen wall like she was seeing something written there. Her hand moved up slowly, holding a kitchen knife by the handle. I felt Sophie's nails dig into my arm. Chloe pressed the blade to the wall. Then she dragged it downward in one long, slow scrape. The sound, I can't explain it. It wasn't loud, but it was wrong. Like something inside my bones reacted to it. A cold, metallic hiss that made my teeth hurt. She did it again. And again. Her face never changed. No anger. No emotion at all. She just kept carving the wall in these strange, careful lines like she was tracing an invisible pattern only she could see. Sophie started shaking. I could feel it through her whole body. "She never used to do this," she mouthed, barely breathing the words. I didn't answer. My brain was stuck in this looping, panicked thought. She's not here for us, she's not here for us, she's not here for us. Yet. The scraping got slower, softer, almost thoughtful. She ran her hand along the cuts she'd made like she needed to feel them. Then she stopped completely. Silence flooded the kitchen. I didn't dare breathe. Her head turned toward us. Not fast, not snapping, just drifting, like her neck wasn't fully under her control. Her eyes settled on the pantry door. Sophie's hand clamped over her own mouth. Chloe took one step toward us. Then another. The knife hung loosely at her side. My heart was shaking so hard I thought I would pass out. I could hear my pulse in my ears pounding like someone knocking from inside my skull. She stopped right outside the pantry. Her shadow covered the crack. We heard her breathing. Slow, ragged, like each inhale was scraping the inside of her lungs. Then the doorknob twitched. Just once, then again harder. I closed my eyes, waiting for the door to swing open. But it didn't. The knob went still. Her footsteps backed away, slowly, then drifted off toward the front door. A long pause. A click. She was unlocking it. Sophie's eyes went wide. If she leaves, we need to run. We waited until her footsteps faded. Then we eased the pantry door open and hurried across the living room toward the side window. Sophie slid it up as quietly as she could, the cold night air rushing in. "Go," she whispered. I climbed out first, landing on the dead grass. Sophie followed. We started running toward the street. When we reached the sidewalk, something made me look back. Chloe was standing in the open front doorway, not chasing us, not yelling, just watching. Her eyes were empty. The knife hung loosely in her hand. She didn't move, not even a little. We kept running until the house disappeared from view. I didn't stay over at Sophie's again. Honestly, we barely talked after that night. Not because we hated each other, but because looking at her reminded me of that moment in the pantry. The breathing on the other side of the door, the way her sister's eyes looked past us like we were just shadows. Her family went through hell afterward. Hospital visits, police, neighbors gossiping, none of it was their fault. I still think about Chloe sometimes, not as a monster, but as someone trapped inside their own mind, hurting without meaning to, someone who scared me more than anyone ever has without even trying. And sometimes when I'm alone at night, I swear I hear that quiet, dragging scrape again. Then the house gets too quiet, and the fear comes back. I always thought lake houses were supposed to feel peaceful. Quiet, safe, relaxing, whatever word people used in those travel ads. For most of my life, that's how Rick's family lake house felt. It was the one place where we could unplug and act like normal kids instead of two stressed-out juniors trying to survive school. No neighbors, no parents, no noise except the water hitting the dock. But that spring break weekend, that place didn't feel peaceful. It felt like we were being watched the entire time, even before anything actually happened. I don't know if it was the way the wind moved through the trees or the fact that there was literally no cell service on Lakeshore Drive, but something in my stomach kept saying, "Don't relax too much. Something's off." I ignored it. I wish I didn't. Rick and I reached the lake house around 3 in the afternoon. Early spring meant the air was still cold enough to sting your face and the water was muddy brown instead of blue. The house looked the same as always. Brown wooden siding, wide porch, big windows facing the lake. Inside, everything smelled like old blankets and lemon cleaner, a smell I always weirdly liked. We dragged our bags in, started a fire, and began our lazy weekend. Games, chips, dumb jokes, the usual. The sun went down around 7, and the whole house dimmed fast. Out there, when it gets dark, it gets pitch dark. The kind of dark where the windows turn into mirrors instead of showing what's outside. We were halfway through some action movie when it started. A single knock at the door. Not loud, not panicked. Just one knock. Rick muted the TV. "Did you hear that?" "Obviously," I whispered. We both sat there, frozen. Nobody should have been out there. People didn't just drop by on Lakeshore Drive. And we were miles from the highway. Then another knock, this time a little softer. Rick crept toward the window beside the door. I followed and peeked over his shoulder. What I saw made my stomach flip. A girl, maybe 18, standing under the porch light with her head tilted down. Her hair was wet and sticking to her face. Her clothes were damp like she'd walked through the lake or something. She didn't look cold. She didn't even shiver. Rick whispered, "What the hell?" The knock came again, 3 short taps. He opened the door only a crack, keeping the chain on. Can we help you?" She lifted her head slowly. Her eyes looked glassy, like she wasn't fully there. "My car broke down," she said. Her voice was completely flat. No emotion at all. "Can I use your phone?" "We don't have service out here," Rick said. "Please," she said, but the tone didn't change. It didn't even sound like begging, more like she was reading a line she'd said 100 times. I stepped closer. "Where's your car?" She didn't blink. "Just up the road." Rick swallowed. "We can't let you in, sorry, but we can..." Before he could finish, she turned around and walked off the porch. Not fast, not slow, just steady. "Wait," Rick called out, but she didn't react at all. We both leaned over the porch railing, watching her walk toward the tree line. She didn't look back. I started breathing faster. "Dude, something's wrong with her." Rick nodded slowly. "We should have let her in." "Are you kidding?" She looked like she was in a trance. He didn't argue. Then we saw them. 2 tall figures standing at the edge of the trees. Not moving, not speaking, just silhouettes against the faint moonlight. "I don't like this," I said, backing up. Rick slammed the door shut and locked it. We killed the lights. The living room went black except for the fire. "Maybe they're with her," Rick whispered. "Yeah, and that makes it worse." We moved away from the windows. The house felt suddenly tiny, like there were 100 cracks they could look through. That's when the scraping started, a slow, steady sound sliding along the wood siding of the house, like someone dragging metal around the entire exterior. It moved from the back wall to the side, then toward the porch. We barricaded the door with a chair, then another. "Grab something," I whispered. Rick handed me a thick fire poker. He grabbed the biggest kitchen knife. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the poker twice. The scraping kept circling. No talking, no footsteps, just scraping. Then silence. Silence always makes things worse. Rick whispered, "Let's check upstairs." I didn't want to, but staying downstairs felt like waiting to die. The wooden stairs creaked way too loud as we climbed. The hallway upstairs was cold enough that I could see my breath. That wasn't normal, the heat was on. We reached the top and froze. A small wet footprint.
Right in the middle of the hallway.
Bob. Small. Fresh, Rick whispered. Please tell me that was here earlier. It definitely wasn't. My throat tightened. Something had come inside. Through a window. A door we forgot to check? I whispered, we should hide. We slipped into the upstairs bathroom, shut the door gently and locked it. The room was small, cold, and smelled like old soap. We crouched by the bathtub, weapons in hand. My heart felt like it was punching my ribs. I tried to breathe quietly, but every inhale sounded too loud. A floorboard creaked outside the bathroom. Then another. Someone was walking. Slowly. Deliberately. Like they knew we were in there and wanted us to hear. A girl's voice started singing. Soft. Childlike. Right outside the bathroom door. You should have let me in. I nearly dropped the fire poker. Rick grabbed my arm hard, eyes wide, shaking his head. The singing stopped. Then came breathing. Right on the other side of the door. Slow and deep, like whoever was out there was inches away from the wood. The doorknob twitched. Not a full turn, more like someone testing it. Feeling it, checking if we'd panic. We stayed completely still. I thought I was going to pass out. Then footsteps moving away. Down the hallway. Down the stairs. Onto the porch. We didn't move for the rest of the night. Not even when the house creaked. Not even when something bumped the front door around 3 a.m. We stayed in that bathroom until the sun finally rose, turning the windows pale blue. When we walked downstairs, the house was empty. No footprints. No broken locks. No signs of forced entry. Rick opened the front door and let out a shaky breath. Dude. On the porch, written in red chalk, were the words, "You were smart this time." All caps. Perfect handwriting. Like someone had taken their time. I kept staring at this time. Why say that unless there had been a first time? Why say that unless they planned on a next time? We drove into town and called the cops from a gas station. 2 officers followed us back to the lake house. They searched everything, every room, every closet, every inch of the property. Nothing. Then one of the officers opened the attic. Boys, you should see this." In the attic, behind some old furniture, was a makeshift sleeping area. A dirty sleeping bag, food wrappers, a water bottle, extra clothes that didn't belong to Rick's family, some notebooks filled with scribbles and weird drawings, a little pile of wet leaves in the corner, like someone had been coming and going for weeks. The officer said, "Someone's been living up here." I felt sick. The girl, the figures, the scraping, all of it was bad enough. But knowing someone had already been inside with us, listening, watching, that was worse. On the drive home, Rick didn't talk. At all. He just kept replaying everything. Jaw clenched, gripping the wheel so tight his knuckles turned white. The lake house went up for sale 2 weeks later. I haven't been back to Lakeshore Drive since. I still think about the voice outside the bathroom. The weird, emotionless way she spoke. The 2 figures standing at the tree line. The footprint upstairs. But the message on the porch, that's what keeps me up at night. You were smart this time. It didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a promise. I don't know when the old Barclay Mill became the prove you're not scared place in our town, but every group had their stories about it. Upperclassmen loved telling us that the basement still smelled like the chemicals they used back when the mill packed industrial glue, or that there were handprints on the walls that didn't match any of the workers' records. None of that stuff actually bothered me. I grew up riding bikes past the place almost every day on my way to school. It was just a huge dead building with broken windows and a sagging roofline. The only thing that ever made me uncomfortable was the night watchman. Mr. Gable looked like someone who had been carved out of the leftover pieces of an old scarecrow. Tall, stiff shoulders, wiry gray hair sticking out behind his cap, eyes that never seemed to blink. Everybody said he was harmless, just grumpy. He'd been hired years ago to keep vandals out. My mom once told me he was too old to hurt anyone. She was wrong, but I didn't know that then. The whole mess started after a birthday party at my friend Jonah's place. It wasn't some wild party or anything, just music, too much soda, and that late-night energy where everyone starts daring each other to do dumb things. Around midnight, someone suggested the sleepover challenge at Barkley Mill. The idea was simple: stay inside until sunrise, get proof, and instantly become a legend at school. Jonah looked straight at me and grinned. "Come on, dude. You've always wanted to check out the inside." He wasn't wrong. I'd passed that mill so many times that it felt like unfinished business. Natalie and Sarah were there too, sitting cross-legged on the carpet eating chips. When they heard the dare, they exchanged this look that basically said, "We're not backing down before the guys do." "We'll do it if you two do," Natalie said, raising her eyebrows. And that was that. We made it official. 4 idiots with phone flashlights, backpacks of snacks, and the kind of confidence that only comes from being 16 and stupid. We got there around 1 a.m. The air outside the mill felt colder than the rest of town, like the building sucked up all the heat. There were no lights, no cars, nothing but the sound of wind hitting those giant, rusted sheets of metal on the walls. We weren't going to try the front door. That was where Mr. Gable usually sat inside his little booth until his shift ended at 3 or 4 in the morning. "I swear I saw him near the gate," Sarah whispered as we crouched near the loading dock. "You're imagining things," Jonah laughed, but he said it too quickly. "He never comes back here." We slid through a broken basement window that someone had forced open years ago. It was a tight squeeze, and when I dropped onto the concrete floor inside, my shoes slid on dust so thick it looked like powder. The smell hit me next. Old machinery, damp wood, rust, and something stale that reminded me of a locked garage that hadn't been opened in years. Jonah shined his phone around. "Dude, look at this place." Huge metal beams disappeared upward into black nothing. Chains hung from the ceiling like metal vines. Every sound echoed. Even our breathing bounced back at us. I tried to play it off, but being in that place felt wrong. Like we weren't supposed to be there. We wandered around for half an hour and eventually found a part of the factory floor wide enough to sit in a circle. Jonah joked about starting a campfire, which got him a smack on the arm from Natalie. To kill time, we started a stupid game of hide and seek, mostly just to prove to each other we weren't scared. I didn't want to admit it, but part of me was still thinking about Mr. Gable, imagining him silently making rounds outside the building while we ran around like we owned the place. "Okay," Sarah said, holding her phone like a countdown timer. "Jonah is it first, go hide." I wandered deeper into the mill than the others did, mostly because I didn't want them hearing my footsteps shake. My heart was beating way too fast for how calm I was pretending to be. Eventually, I ducked into this old manager's office with cracked windows and a warped wooden door that barely hung on its hinges. My flashlight beam cut across peeling wallpaper, broken cabinets, scattered tools, and then a wall. Covered. Like literally covered in Polaroid photos. For a few seconds, I just stared, confused. My brain didn't understand what I was looking at. Then I stepped closer. Every picture had a person in it, but not random people. Us. The first photo I recognized showed Jonah skateboarding behind the school last month. Another one showed Natalie and Sarah at the Halloween fair. There were photos of my house. One taken from the sidewalk, one taken from the alley behind it, and one taken from outside my bedroom window. My bedroom window. My chest tightened so fast it hurt. No way. No way these were real. I crouched down, scanning the wall, hoping there'd be some explanation. Maybe someone printed our Instagram photos or something. But some of these weren't taken from a normal angle. Some were clearly shot from bushes, behind fences, from inside cars. And then I saw a photo from earlier that night. Us walking to the mill, laughing, not even noticing the camera pointed right at us. My stomach dropped. I actually felt dizzy. Someone had been watching us for a long time. A beam of white light suddenly filled the room. My whole body jerked. "Found you." But it wasn't Jonah's voice. Mr. Gable stepped into the doorway, blocking it entirely with his frame. In one hand was a large flashlight. In the other, swinging casually like he was bored, was a heavy pair of bolt cutters. His face didn't look grumpy like usual. It looked wrong, like he couldn't decide what emotion he wanted to show. His smile twitched at the corners, then dropped, then twitched again. "You kids really shouldn't be in here," he said softly. "This place isn't safe." I tried to speak, but it came out like a whisper. "We didn't mean..." He cut me off with a weird, cheerful laugh. Oh, I know what you meant. You wanted to look around. Everyone wants to look around, but you? His smile stretched unnaturally wide. You picked the wrong room. He stepped farther inside. Instinctively, I stepped back. The front door is locked, he muttered, suddenly angry. The change in tone happened so fast it felt like someone flipped a switch. Do you understand? Locked, and I can't have you leaving yet. My legs turned liquid. My brain screamed at me to run, but my body wouldn't move. We need to talk, he said, lowering his head like he was comforting a child. We need to figure out what happens next. I finally snapped out of it and screamed as loud as I possibly could. Jonah, Sarah, Natalie, run. Mr. Gable lunged for me, but I shoved a metal chair in his path and sprinted out of the office. He yelled, a raw, furious sound that didn't match the calm voice he'd used seconds earlier. I could hear my friends shouting from somewhere across the mill, their voices bouncing around the metal walls. Phone flashlights flickered in every direction. Jonah grabbed my arm. What happened? Why were you screaming? He has photos of us, my house. He's been watching us. A loud crash exploded behind us. Mr. Gable appeared from another hallway, breathing hard, wild-eyed. He smacked the bolt cutters against a steel pipe, sending sparks flying. Come on then, he shouted. You want to hide? Let's play a game. We ran. Not even in a straight line, just blindly through the maze of rusted machines, conveyor belts, ropes, and broken platforms. He knew the layout better than we did, though. Every time we thought we'd lost him, he'd appear from a side corridor, yelling or laughing or whispering something we couldn't make out. Twice we almost ran straight into him. We stuck together because splitting up felt suicidal. Natalie yelled that she saw a stairwell, and we followed her up to a second-floor walkway made of old grating. It shook under our weight. I swear I could feel the entire structure swaying. Keep going, Jonah panted. There's a window up ahead! We reached a room that looked like some kind of break area. There was a cracked vending machine, a warped table, and a dirty window overlooking the parking lot. My phone finally has signal, Sarah cried. Her voice broke. Call someone, call anyone. I slammed the door shut. There was no lock, so I shoved a metal cabinet against it and then another. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped one of them and had to try again. Mr. Gable, he's insane, I managed to say. He has a wall of photos. He's been watching us for months. Jonah's face went pale. We need to get out of here. Sarah was crying as she held her phone up. It's ringing. Oh my God, please answer, please. Footsteps pounded up the stairwell. Heavy, dragging, uneven. Then a fist slammed against the door so hard dust fell from the ceiling. You kids can't hide forever, Mr. Gable growled. His voice cracked between rage and a sort of delighted laughter. I know every room in this place. Every secret door. Every dead end. He hit the door again. The cabinets leaned forward. Natalie screamed. Jonah grabbed the window frame. It opens! We can climb out! The drop wasn't too bad, maybe a full story onto a patch of overgrown grass. We didn't think. We didn't prepare. We just climbed out one by one, dropping into the dark. I twisted my ankle when I landed, but kept running anyway. From the broken window above us, Mr. Gable leaned out, his face stretched into something I still see in nightmares. You won't get far, he hissed. I'm not done with you. But we ran, across the lot into the road toward the gas station lights in the distance. That was the moment my phone finally buzzed. Sarah had gotten through to 911. By the time the police arrived, Gable was gone. Inside the mill, they found the office, the Polaroids, his sleeping cot, his journals, his knives, his lists of names, people who'd gone missing years ago. It hit the news for maybe a week. Then the town stopped talking about it, like ignoring it made it less horrifying. He was arrested a month later in another state, but I still think about that room, that wall, that moment he said he knew what happens next. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if my flashlight hadn't hit those photos, if I'd hidden somewhere else, if we hadn't run fast enough. Sometimes I check my bedroom window twice before sleeping, sometimes 3 times, and I swear, I still feel like someone is watching. I used to think blanket forts were the safest places in the world. Like every time I crawled into one, the entire house couldn't touch me. No monsters, no stress, no school stuff, just stupid jokes, snacks, and whatever game my best friend Tyler and I made up. I never thought a blanket fort could almost get us killed. This happened when I was 13. back when sleepovers were still the biggest thing in my life. Tyler's house was basically my second home. His parents trusted me, I trusted them, and everything always felt so normal there. Same suburban street, same porch light that stayed on all night, same dog that barked at literally nothing. It was a safe place, or at least I thought. That night started like every other weekend at Tyler's. We'd had pizza, watched dumb videos, and played basketball in his driveway with that half-flat ball he refused to throw away. His parents went upstairs around 10, and we got hit with that burst of energy you only get when you know you're supposed to be asleep, but you're not even a little tired. "Dude, Fort?" Tyler said, grinning like a maniac. "Fort," I said back. And in that moment, that was the most exciting thing in the world. We dragged every blanket in the house into the living room. His mom's fuzzy ones, old superhero sheets, couch covers, extra comforters from the closet. We stacked chairs, boxes, couch cushions. We built tunnels, little rooms, and this huge common area lit by Tyler's stupid color-changing lamp he always set to blue, because he said it made everything feel like a video game. It took almost 2 hours, but by the end it felt like a real maze, like if you crawled in too deep, you'd actually get lost. And for some reason, we loved that. When we were done, we stood there sweating and proud. "This thing is insane," Tyler said, wiping his forehead. "It's like bigger than your room." "Dude, it's like Fort City." We were hyped out of our minds. And of course, because we're idiots, we decided to play Fort Murder. If you've never played it, it's basically hide and seek, but with fake horror movie rules. One person is the killer and crawls around the fort trying to find the other person. Yeah, I know, stupid name, even stupider game. But we were kids. Tyler was the killer first, so he sat in the main chamber, covered his eyes, and started counting loud enough for me to hear. 1, 2, 3. I crawled as quietly as I could into one of the deeper tunnels, the kind you had to go on your stomach to get through. It was warm inside, but not uncomfortable. The blankets blocked out most of the lights, and the whole place smelled like fabric softener, dust, and something else, like old carpet. The fort felt small but safe. I found a little pocket between 2 chairs and tucked myself into it. Perfect hiding spot. 35, 36. I felt my heartbeat slow down as the excitement turned into that fun type of nervousness, like the kind you get right before someone jumps out in a haunted house. I hugged my knees and tried not to make a sound. 51, 52. Then I heard it. Fabric shifting, slow, careful, something crawling, in the tunnel right next to mine. I froze. The sound was soft enough that I thought I might have imagined it. But then I heard it again. A slow, dragging sound, like someone pulling themselves forward with their elbows. Tyler was definitely coming early. I rolled my eyes a little, smiling to myself. "Bro, cheating already?" I whispered under my breath. Then, right as I said that, Tyler's voice came from the common area. Loud, clear, and way too far away to be the one crawling near me. 58, 59, 60. My whole body went cold. Tyler was still counting. The crawling stopped. I didn't even breathe. For a second, there was dead silence, like the blankets were holding the air still. Then something shifted again. Closer, right outside my tunnel. My mind was racing. If Tyler was still in the common area, then who was in here with me? I wanted to call out. I wanted to yell Tyler's name, but my throat wouldn't move. I just sat there shaking, trying to make sense of it, trying to tell myself maybe it was the fort settling or a blanket sliding. But that wasn't true. I knew it wasn't, because blankets don't breathe. I heard it. Quiet, shaky breathing right on the other side of the fabric wall, just inches away. I covered my mouth with both hands, eyes watering, and prayed it was Tyler messing with me. But something deep down told me it wasn't. The air smelled different suddenly, like dirt and sweat, like someone who hadn't showered in a long time. Then from the other side of the thin blanket wall, inches from my face, a low whisper came through. "Found you." I screamed, like full panic, no thinking scream, and burst forward, ripping through the blanket wall. I didn't care what I destroyed. I just crawled like I was drowning and the air was in front of me. "Dude, what?" Tyler shouted, flipping on the living room lights. The sudden brightness made everything 10 times more chaotic. Half the fort collapsed behind me. Blankets fell everywhere like an avalanche. I scrambled out and fell onto the carpet, choking on my own breath. "What happened? What happened?" Tyler yelled, running toward me. I tried to speak, but my voice was shaking too hard. I pointed at the destroyed tunnel, and Tyler turned just as something moved inside it. For 1 second, one horrible, burned into my brain second, we saw a man crawl out of the collapsed fort. He was filthy, his clothes dark and torn, his hair greasy and stuck to his face. His eyes were wide, staring at us like he couldn't believe we saw him. Then he scrambled toward the hallway on all fours, fast, too fast. No, 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 Tyler shouted, backing up so hard he slammed into the wall. The man disappeared into the darkness of the house, and everything went silent. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. I could hear Tyler's parents snoring faintly upstairs. I could hear the house creaking. Every sound felt too sharp, like the world was suddenly louder now that something was wrong. He was in the fort, I whispered. He was crawling right next to me. Tyler's face twisted like he didn't want to believe it, but he saw him too. He wasn't dreaming. We both stood there shaking, staring down the dark hallway where the man had gone. To Tyler, I whispered, "Lock the back door, I'll lock the front." We didn't run. We couldn't. We moved slowly, both of us terrified that every shadow was him. My hands kept missing the lock because they were shaking so bad. Once both doors were locked, we backed up until we were in the middle of the living room again, not taking our eyes off the hallway. Should we get your parents?" I asked. Tyler swallowed hard. His voice cracked. What if he's upstairs now? That thought punched me in the chest. What if he broke in earlier that day? What if he'd been watching us build the fort? What if he'd been waiting? A noise came from the hallway, a soft thump, then another, like someone crawling, slow, patient. My whole body locked up. "Call 911, I whispered, "now." Tyler grabbed the house phone and dialed, hands shaking so bad he almost dropped it. I stood in front of him, heart slamming against my ribs, staring at the hallway like if I blinked, the man would sprint at us. He didn't come out. Not then. But we heard him. His breathing. Right around the corner. The police arrived fast, sirens blaring down our quiet street. Tyler's parents came running down the stairs, confused and half asleep, and we practically screamed at them to stay back. Officers searched the entire house. Closets, basement, attic, behind furniture. They didn't find him, but they found what he left behind. Mud on the carpet. A snapped piece of wood from the basement window. A small metal tool he must have dropped while crawling out of the fort. And a smell. That same smell from the blankets. Sweat, dirt. Something else I don't even want to think about. They told us he was gone. That we were lucky. That he probably slipped out when he heard the sirens. But the thing that sticks with me, the part I can't forget no matter how much time passes, is how quiet he was. How close he was. How he waited until I was completely alone in the dark, before whispering to me. Sometimes at night, even years later, I swear I hear that same slow breathing, or the faint sound of fabric shifting, or that whisper right next to my ear. Found you. And the worst part? Every time I think about it, I realize something new. That fort had only 2 entrances. Tyler came from one. The police came through the other. So where did he crawl out from, and how long was he watching us build it before he decided to play? Before everything happened, the treehouse was the safest place in the world to me. Honestly, sometimes I think that summer was the last time I ever felt truly fearless. My dad had this idea that building something with your own hands toughens you up, so he made Liam and me help him build it one July when I was 10 and Liam was 13. It wasn't some tiny kid treehouse either. This was a full little building way up in this big oak tree in the stretch of woods behind our backyard. We spent like 3 straight weeks on it. Cutting boards, hammering nails, arguing over where the windows should go. It actually turned out really nice. A trapdoor with a bolt, 2 windows, shelves, even a dumb little battery-powered fan. We carried up old sleeping bags and flashlights and a pack of cards. Liam called it Base 1 like we were soldiers or something. We even had a baby monitor hooked up because the treehouse was far enough from the house that our mom worried. The parent unit stayed on a shelf in the hallway near her room, and the kid unit was always in the treehouse. We used it mostly to joke around with each other, but it made Mom feel better. For years, the treehouse was our spot. We'd disappear up there after school, eat snacks, talk about school, complain about parents. Normal stuff. I never thought of it as something that could ever feel dangerous. But that changed pretty fast. A few weeks before the night that everything happened, I remember climbing up to the treehouse alone one afternoon. I opened the trap door and stepped inside, and the first thing I noticed was a weird carving on the floor, like a crude circle with jagged lines through it, almost like someone dug into the wood with a rock. I called down, "Liam, did you do this?" He climbed up a minute later, took one look, and instantly went, "Dude, relax, probably just a stick or something fell through the floorboards." But the floorboards were solid, no holes. And it didn't look like a random scratch, it looked deliberate. I remember crouching there, running my finger over it, and feeling that weird, heavy stomach drop, like something wasn't right. Then a couple days later, I found my favorite action figure, one I always kept on the shelf in the treehouse, on the ground below, snapped in half. The arms were gone completely. I asked Liam again if he'd done it, or if he knocked it out by accident. He shook his head and made a face like he thought I was accusing him. "Dude, why would I do that? Maybe a squirrel got in." I didn't say anything, but squirrels don't break toys clean in half. Even back then, I felt like someone else had been up there. Someone who wasn't supposed to be. The real mistake, and the one that set everything else in motion, was me trying to act brave. One Friday afternoon, I told Liam, "Let's sleep in the treehouse tonight." He raised an eyebrow. "You sure? You've been weird about it lately." I laughed it off. "I'm not scared, I just want to hang out up there again like old times." And honestly, I think a part of me just wanted to prove something, that I wasn't a little kid anymore. That those scratches or whatever didn't freak me out. Our parents didn't care. Mom just said, "Keep the baby monitor on and no jumping from the treehouse like idiots." We grabbed blankets, snacks, 2 flashlights, and climbed up as the sun was going down. Everything felt normal then. The air smelled like pine, and the ground was soft from rain the day before. The woods behind our house always got super dark at night, like pitch black, but when we were little that made it feel exciting. That night though, even while we were just setting up our sleeping bags, I had this little tightness in my chest I couldn't shake. By the time it was completely dark, we were lying on our sleeping bags, trading stupid jokes and shining our flashlights out the windows like kids playing lookouts. The baby monitor sat between us, green light glowing. We heard the first sound, the sharp snap of a stick, and around 10 p.m. It wasn't super loud, but loud enough that Liam and I both froze. He whispered, "Probably a deer." I nodded even though my heart was already beating fast. Then we heard another snap, closer. Liam leaned toward the window and whispered, "See anything?" I shook my head, even though looking out into those trees felt like staring into a wall of black. We tried to ignore it and kept talking, but then came another sound. Slow steps crushing leaves. Not rushed, not scrambling like an animal, just walking. Deliberate. My entire body went cold, circling. A few minutes later, the footsteps started circling the tree. We didn't say a word. We didn't even breathe loud. The steps moved around us like someone pacing, checking all sides. Heavy steps pressing into the dirt. Liam mouthed, "Someone's down there." I nodded, swallowing hard. My mouth felt dry. I could feel my pulse in my fingers. Then came a sound that still makes me sick to think about. The first creaking thump on the wooden boards nailed to the tree. The boards we used as a ladder. Someone was climbing. The trapdoor. Liam grabbed my arm hard. "Don't move." We sat frozen, listening to the boards creak under the person's weight. The trapdoor rattled once, then twice, then violently. The bolt held, but the whole treehouse shook. Then came a low whisper from under the trapdoor. A deep man's voice. "I know you're in there." My heart slammed in my chest. Then the baby monitor between us crackled. "I know you're in there." The same voice, which meant he was close enough to speak into the parent unit in our house. He had been inside, or was inside right then. We screamed for our parents as something slammed into the trapdoor again. The whole treehouse swayed. We scrambled to the roof hatch, ready to run. Then, footsteps running away through leaves. Flashlights, Dad shouting our names. Cops came. They found a makeshift camp deep in the woods, but nobody was caught. By Sunday, the treehouse was torn down. Liam never went back into the woods. I didn't either. And sometimes late at night, I still hear that whisper through the monitor. "I know you're in there." I never thought a single sleepover could make me feel that small again. I was 15, old enough to know better, young enough to still get giddy over staying at someone else's house. It was the first weekend after midterms, the one where everything felt like a reward. My friend Alex texted me like it was no big deal. Sleepover Friday. You coming? He lived on the other side of town in a row of townhouses that backed onto an empty lot. Not a bad place, quiet street, little porch lights, but farther than where I usually walked. Alex's house felt like the kind of place grown-ups forgot about. His parents were out of state for the weekend visiting his aunt, so it was just him, his older sister Hannah who worked late, and the dogs tied up in the garage. Alex promised taco and a new co-op game. I said yes before thinking it through. There were 4 of us: me, Alex, Ben, and Maya. Ben and I had been friends since middle school. Maya was mostly Alex's friend from art class. We set up sleeping bags on the living room floor, stacked soda cans like trophies, and turned on a dumb movie. Everything was loud and messy and normal. We joked, shoved each other, and passed headphones around when the trailers came on. At about 12:30, Alex said, "Let's play truth or dare, but no dares that get us in trouble." His grin made the rule sound like a dare itself. We circled around on the rugs and started with the easy stuff: crushes, favorite teachers, who would survive a zombie thing. We were all laughing until Maya went quiet. She wasn't looking at us. She was staring down the hallway like she expected someone to walk through. "You okay?" I asked. She blinked and laughed it off. "Yeah, just weirded out. The house sounds different at night." After that, the weirdness piled up. First it was small. Alex's lamp flicked once when no one touched it. Ben swore his phone, which he'd left on the couch, vibrated even though no one called. Maya said she'd left her sketchbook on the coffee table, and it wasn't there anymore, but we figured she misplaced it. Later, when we went to the kitchen for more tacos, something felt off in the living room. A section of the rug near the couch had been pulled up like someone rolled it back and stuck something under. We laughed it off. "Probably the dogs," Alex said. But none of the dogs had been allowed inside. Hannah always kept the door closed. I didn't sleep much. Every noise made me sit up. Every shadow looked like someone in the doorway. Around 2 in the morning, I went to the bathroom, and on the way back I heard a soft creak from the attic hatch in the hallway. It sounded like settling, but the hairs on my arms rose. I told myself it was nothing. Old houses do that. Still, there was a prickly feeling under my ribs, like something had its eyes on us, waiting. We drifted to sleep eventually with the TV humming. In that half-dream where you're not sure what's real, I thought the house felt too empty, too quiet for a place that should have smelled like taco, soda, and gym socks. The night stretched on, heavy and silent, each tick of the clock echoing like footsteps. Hours later, when the house was deep in silence and the night stretched its black arms across every corner, the moment came. I had wandered toward the couch to grab a soda when Alex leaned down to pick up a small mirror that had fallen under the bed. His hand froze as he squinted into the darkness. My stomach flipped when I saw it too, a pale human hand slowly stretching from the shadow beneath the bed, reaching across the floor toward us. It moved with a quiet deliberateness, deliberate and impossibly patient. I froze, the blood in my chest gone solid. The hand lingered, twitching, as if testing its reach, before it retreated slowly back into the shadows, disappearing like it had never been there at all. We called Hannah immediately. This time she answered, her voice hollow and uneven. "I'm almost home," she said. "Do you need me to come over?" Her tone was careful, as if someone had instructed her word for word. "Yes," Alex said quickly. "Please." When Hannah pulled into the driveway an hour later, she didn't smile like usual. She looked tired and scared. She walked through the house, stopped at the hallway. "The attic hatch?" she said like she already knew. She climbed the ladder and pushed the hatch open. The attic smelled like old paper and damp clothes. On the plywood were faint scrawls rubbed out. A broken flashlight lay on its side. "There's stuff up here," she whispered. "Food wrappers, a sleeping bag, bottles. This isn't a raccoon." Our stomachs dropped. Someone had been living up there, maybe for weeks. That meant they'd been watching us, moving while we slept, eating our food. The idea of someone above us felt like poison in my mouth. We didn't know what to do. Call the cops? Confront him? For a moment we just stood, the attic yawning dark above us. Hannah climbed down, the ladder creaking like bones. The police came. They searched top to bottom, checked crawl spaces, ran dogs. They found footprints leading from the alley into a gap in the fence and up under the deck, where there was a small hatch. It led to a crawl space under the back stairs, too narrow to stand but wide enough to squeeze through. A detective pulled out wrappers and filthy sneakers. "He's been using this," he said. When they asked me what I saw, I told them about the mirror, the rug, the attic smell. I didn't say anything about the hand. Saying it out loud would sound like a nightmare. Later in the morning, Alex's mom made us sleep in her bedroom. She locked the door and set a chair against it. She cried when she showed us a tiny handprint on the pantry door, like someone small had reached while hiding, trying to grab a can. "How long?" she whispered. "How long was he here?" Later that morning, the police checked again. In the insulation, they found a notebook with maps, arrows, and numbers. On the back page, "I make sure I'm quiet." That note hit me harder than anything. He planned to stay. He thought he was safe. We tried to trap him, to stay awake with cameras from old phones, taping doors, blocking knobs. But he adapted, moving where we weren't looking. One night, Maya screamed she saw a shadow move across the hallway toward her room. We turned on every light. The hallway was empty, but on the floor were tiny barefoot prints leading to the vent and stopping. That's when we realized it wasn't just the attic or crawl space. It was the small spaces, the vents, the baseboards, panels behind the washer. He knew the house better than us. Ben's hoodie was returned one day, folded strangely at the end of the driveway. No note, just there, like a message. A week later, the cops caught him. A neighbor heard a clank and called. They pulled a gaunt man from the crawl space, filthy, smelling of dried sweat. He had a pocket knife and a small radio. He didn't fight. He barely spoke. The news called him a squatter. The headlines didn't make it cleaner. Detectives found maps of the house, lists of times, notes about which rooms were empty. They found a photo torn from a magazine with a kid circled in red. They called it random scrap. But my stomach dropped when I heard it. At the trial, I sat in the back. He shuffled through the courtroom like a shadow. He avoided our eyes. They gave him time, but for us, the paperwork felt thin. Afterward, Alex's house felt ruined. Hannah sold it. Alex moved away. I stopped saying yes to sleepovers. I still wake at night, listening for the creak of a hatch or the scrape of something crawling. People say time heals. It doesn't. It buries things under other things. The memory still breathes. And sometimes, late at night, I still picture that hand sliding out from under the bed, reaching, waiting. And I wonder how many times it reached when I wasn't looking. I was never the paranoid one. That was Jamie, or sometimes Chris after binging late-night Reddit threads about home invasions and stalkers. Me? I was always the one who told everyone to chill. That stuff didn't happen in real life, not to us. Not in Ravenswood Estates, a gated community with manicured lawns, security guards at the entrance, and neighbors who left their doors unlocked because they believed nothing bad could get past the stone walls. That was before the summer everything changed. Before the night we stopped being kids. It was supposed to be just another one of our sleepovers. A tradition since middle school. We were 17 now, seniors, almost out of time. And there was this unspoken feeling that it might be the last one before jobs, college, and life tore us apart. Ethan's house was the obvious choice. His family's place in Ravenswood was massive, 5 bedrooms, a basement that felt like a movie theater, and a kitchen stocked with more snacks than a 7-Eleven. His parents were out of town that weekend. Perfect. There were 6 of us that night. Me, Alex, Ethan, our host, Jamie, Matt, Ryan, and Chris. We settled in around 7 p.m. with the usual setup. Sodas, chips, controllers plugged in, trash talk over Mario Kart. The air buzzed with that careless summer freedom where time didn't matter. By 10, we'd switch to horror movies, half daring each other to scream first. That's when Lucas showed up, Ethan's older cousin, 20, maybe 21. He was taller than all of us, lean, with this half smirk like he was either amused or disgusted by everything he saw. I'd only met him twice before, at a barbecue and once in passing when he'd crashed at Ethan's. He didn't knock properly, just rang the bell, then let himself in when Ethan opened the door. "Yo," Lucas said, sliding into the living room like he owned it. "Heard you guys had food." He wasn't wrong. We still had boxes of pizza on the counter. Ethan laughed awkwardly, told him to grab a slice. Lucas didn't hesitate. He piled a plate high, then sat off to the side, scrolling on his phone while we tried to pretend his presence wasn't killing the mood. Jamie leaned close to me. "This dude creeps me out." I shrugged. "He's just older, probably high." Lucas stayed maybe 40 minutes. Barely talked, just ate, scrolled, then mumbled something about meeting people later, and bounced. Ethan didn't seem bothered. Said Lucas came around sometimes when home got rough. At the time it felt like nothing. But later, every detail replayed in my head like clues I should have seen. By midnight, we'd built a fort out of couch cushions, sprawled in sleeping bags across the living room. The house was quiet except for our dumb late-night banter. Someone joked about Ryan's crush, Matt threw a pillow, Chris tried to fart loud enough to ruin the moment. Normal, comfortable, safe, until it wasn't. I woke up around 1:15 a.m., not from a dream, but from a sound. A click thump, faint but sharp, like a door sliding shut. I told myself it was nothing, maybe Ethan grabbing a snack, but then I rolled over. Ethan was right there, curled in his sleeping bag, still as stone, asleep. The hairs on my arms rose. That's when the voices came. Low, muffled, 2 of them. I froze, staring into the dim glow of the kitchen light. Then the living room erupted. The overhead snapped on. 2 men stood there, black hoodies, masks covering their faces. And one of them carried a gun. Not a toy, not a BB gun. A heavy black pistol gleaming under the light. The kind that could erase a life in a heartbeat. "Don't move," the gunman barked. His voice was deep, commanding. "Hands where I can see them." I felt my body move before my brain caught up, arms shooting into the air, heart detonating in my chest. Jamie gasped. Matt cursed under his breath. Chris whimpered, eyes wide and wet. The second guy had a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He tossed it on the floor. Everything. Phones, wallets, watches. Now. No one argued. Not with a gun in the room. Ryan fumbled his phone and it clattered on the hardwood. The gunman snapped. "You think this is a joke? Do it again and I'll blow your head off." Ryan stammered apologies, shaking so hard he nearly dropped his wallet too. I obeyed. We all did, dumping everything into the pile like scared kids. The second man moved quickly, shoving items into the bag, rifling through pockets. He even pocketed Jamie's earbuds and Matt's portable charger. It was surgical, practiced, like they'd done this before. But then I noticed something. They skipped Ethan. His phone was on the coffee table. His wallet sat half out of his backpack. His sneakers, brand new Jordans worth more than my entire wardrobe, were by the door, untouched. And Ethan wasn't panicking like the rest of us. His face was pale, yes, but not the wide-eyed terror I saw on Chris or Jamie. No trembling hands, no frantic breaths. He just sat there, stiff, like he knew this was coming. The duffel man suddenly pulled out a necklace from Matt's bag and chuckled. "Nice bling, kid." Then the gunman turned, waving the pistol toward us for emphasis. That's when Ethan and the gunman locked eyes. It was only a second, maybe less. But I saw it. Recognition, not the panicked stare of a victim, the look of someone meeting an acquaintance. My stomach dropped. A deafening crack split the air. The gunman had fired into the ceiling. Plaster rained down. Chris screamed. Jamie curled into a ball. Ryan muttered, "Oh my God," over and over. And Ethan? He flinched late, almost like he'd been expecting it. "Shut up," the gunman roared. "Next one's for real." They stuffed the last of our valuables into the duffel and bolted through the back door, gone in seconds. For a long time, none of us moved. The only sound was Chris sobbing softly. My arms ached from being frozen in the air. My ears rang from the gunshot. We didn't call the cops right away. Instead, we called our parents. They rushed over, furious, terrified, demanding answers. Ethan tried to play the shocked host, insisting he had no idea who the men were. Said we were lucky to be alive. But none of us were buying it. Not after what we saw. Jamie was the first to speak. "Lucas was here earlier. Then these guys show up. That's a hell of a coincidence." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Don't start with that." Matt's voice shook. "Why didn't they touch your stuff, Ethan? Your Jordans are worth more than everything I own." "They didn't notice, I guess." "Bullshit," Ryan snapped. "They noticed everything else." Ethan glared at him. "Screw you, man. You think I set us up?" But his forehead was slick with sweat. Not fear sweat, guilt sweat. I wanted to say it, to lay it all out. The untouched wallet, the calm act, the look between him and the gunman. But something stopped me. Ethan knew my secret. It wasn't something huge, not in the grand scheme of things. But it was mine. And Ethan had been the only one I'd ever told. One late night when I thought trust meant something. If he decided to spill it, to my parents, to the group, it would ruin me. And when his eyes flicked toward me, just for a second, I knew he remembered too. That glance was enough to shut me up. Later, we found out Lucas had a record: petty theft, breaking and entering. He'd been arrested a few times. Nobody tied him to the break-in officially. Our parents didn't want the police dragging us through court. They said the intruders just got lucky. But we knew better. We never slept over at Ethan's again. In fact, we barely spoke. He transferred schools a month later. Rumor was he went to live with some relatives across the state. But me? I never escaped that night. I still wake up at 1:15 a.m. sometimes, ears straining for that click thump of the door. I still feel the gun pointed at my chest, my breath caught in my throat. But what haunts me more than the fear is the betrayal. Because the worst kind of monster isn't the one who breaks into your home. It's the one who unlocks the door for them. I was 16 the night we decided to spend the weekend at Bellwood House. Everyone in town knew about the place. A sprawling, decaying mansion that sat on the outskirts like a scar nobody wanted to look at. Its windows were always dark, its gates rusted, and its name carried a weight that made you lower your voice when you said it. It had belonged to the Harland family once, though nobody could ever tell you much about them, except that they kept to themselves and left suddenly. Some people said they moved away. Others whispered darker things, but everyone agreed on one point. The house was haunted, and of course that made it the perfect place for a sleepover. Sophia was the one who suggested it. She was always chasing thrills, the kind of girl who laughed too loud when she was nervous and dared you to do things she'd never do herself. Ava rolled her eyes at the idea, but agreed instantly. Lily hesitated. She always hesitated. But when the three of us turned to her, she sighed and said, "Fine, but if we get murdered, it's on you." That Friday evening, Sophia's older brother dropped us at the gates. The driveway was long, lined with skeletal trees, and the house at the end looked like it was leaning forward to listen. Even in the last slant of daylight, it was gray, drained of color. We carried our sleeping bags, flashlights, and snacks up the creaking porch steps. The door, swollen with age, groaned when Sophia shoved it open. The air inside was sharp with dust and old wood, like the smell of a chest that hadn't been opened in decades. "This is so creepy," Lily muttered. clinging to my arm. Exactly, Sophia grinned. Best sleepover ever. We claimed the grand parlor as our base camp, spreading out blankets on the cracked marble floor. Above us, a chandelier dangled dangerously, its crystals dust-coated and dull. By midnight, after junk food and whispered ghost stories, Sophia dared us to explore the attic. I didn't want to admit I'd been hoping someone would suggest it. Bellwood's attic was legendary, the heart of every rumor. We climbed the narrow staircase with our flashlights bouncing shadows across the peeling wallpaper. At the top, the air felt heavier, like it had been trapped for years. That's when we found it. It sat on a table shoved against the far wall. A recorder, bulky, metal, with two reel spools and buttons so stiff they looked welded in place. Dust covered everything except the microphone, which looked newer somehow, like someone had been here recently. "What is this, some kind of tape recorder?" Ava asked, brushing it off with her sleeve. Sophia leaned closer. "Bet it still works." "Bet it doesn't," Lily muttered, hugging herself. Ava pressed a button. The reels jerked, then whirred to life with a faint hiss. We jumped when a voice crackled through the speaker. 4 girls, entering the attic, laughing nervously. The sound was distorted, old, but it was us. Right now. We froze, staring at each other. That's not funny," Lily stammered. Sophia's grin faltered. I didn't do anything." The voice continued, monotone, detached. One of them reaches for the recorder. Ava snatched her hand back like it had burned her. We stood there, hearts pounding, as the recording played on. They hear footsteps behind them, though the stairs are empty. We whipped around. The staircase gaped open, empty. Nothing but shadows. That was enough for me. "Turn it off," I whispered. Ava slammed the button down. The reels clicked to a stop. But silence was worse, because now every creak in the house sounded like footsteps. We should have left right then. We should have run down the stairs, out the door into the night. But we didn't. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe the house itself had its claws in us. Back in the parlor, nobody could sleep. Sophia paced, muttering about how it must be some pre-recorded thing. Lily curled up in her sleeping bag and refused to speak. Ava kept turning her flashlight on and off like she was testing reality. I couldn't stop thinking about the recorder, about how it knew what we were doing. At some point, Sophia grabbed my arm. "Let's go back, just for a second. I want to know if it'll play again." I should have said no. Instead, the 4 of us crept back upstairs, like moths circling a flame we knew would burn us. The recorder was waiting, its reels still. Ava pressed play. They returned to the attic, against their better judgment. The blood drained from my face. One of them begins to cry. We all turned to Lily. Her lip trembled, and tears spilled before she could stop them. She shook her head violently. No, stop it. It's just a coincidence." But it wasn't. We knew it wasn't. The voice went on. "A shadow moves past the circular window." All 4 of us whipped our heads to the tiny attic window. Something, a figure, tall, thin, drifted past the glass. Ava screamed. Sophia cursed. I felt my knees weaken. But when I lunged to the window, there was nothing. Just the empty yard below, the skeletal trees swaying. "Someone's out there," I whispered. "Or something," Sophia added, her voice cracking. Back downstairs, nobody dared turn the recorder on again. Instead, we huddled in the parlor with one of the dusty books we'd pulled from a shelf. It was a town directory, yellowed and brittle. That's how we found him. Mr. Raymond Harland, listed as Bellwood's caretaker until the mid-1970s, known for extensive documentation of daily life. Neighbors wrote about how he kept notebooks, photographs, recordings, anything to prove, as one note scrawled in the margin said, "That choice is an illusion." "That's insane," Ava whispered. "Maybe he built the recorder," I said. "Or maybe he never left," Sophia muttered. The house groaned around us like it was listening. That night, I dreamed of a man standing at the foot of my sleeping bag. Thin, pale, watching. When I woke, I wasn't sure it had been a dream. By morning, we were too scared to explore further, but too stubborn to leave. We sat in the parlor, trying to convince ourselves it was all some elaborate prank. That's when the recorder clicked on. Nobody touched it. Nobody was near it. The reels spun, hissing. They sit in the parlor, debating whether to flee. One of them leaves first. We all stared at each other. Who? Which one? Before we could move, Lily bolted upright. I can't do this. She grabbed her bag and ran for the door. Lily, wait, I shouted, but she was gone, footsteps echoing down the hall. The recorder whirred again. The one who runs will not return. The silence that followed was unbearable. Sophia covered her mouth. Ava whispered, She's fine. She's fine. It's just a scare tactic. But we didn't see Lily again. By dusk, the house felt alive. Every wall creaked like it was breathing. Every shadow stretched too long. We gathered our things, finally ready to leave, when the recorder played one last time. 3 remain, 2 will deny, 1 will remember. The voice faded, the reels slowing to a stop. We didn't speak, didn't dare. We just left, ran down the drive, through the rusted gates, until Bellwood was nothing but a shape against the horizon. Epilogue. It's been 10 years. We never found Lily. Police said she probably ran away, that she'd had enough of our town. Sophia refuses to talk about that night. Ava insists the recorder was just malfunctioning, that we imagined the rest. But me? I can still hear the voice sometimes late at night just before sleep. 1 will remember, and I do. I remember everything. And sometimes when I close my eyes, I see him, Mr. Harland, standing in the shadows, watching, like he's still recording. I still remember that summer like it was yesterday. I was 14, just finishing middle school, and every weekend felt like it could be a small adventure. My friends and I had this unspoken rule of always hanging out at someone's house, especially when our parents were busy. That particular weekend, my friend Harper invited me over for a sleepover at her older brother's house. Well, technically her parents' house, but her brother Mason was 17, and let's just say he kept things interesting when he wasn't around. Harper's neighborhood was quiet, lined with big houses and wide lawns. Her house stood at the end of a cul-de-sac, a 2-story brick thing with a garage full of bikes and a porch that always seemed a little crooked. I'd been there a few times before for movie nights and casual hangouts, but nothing had felt off until that night. When I got there, Harper was already pacing on the porch, phone in hand, like she'd been waiting for me for ages. Her 2 friends, Chloe and Lila, were already sitting on the porch steps, scrolling through their phones and laughing quietly at memes. Finally, Harper said, tossing her backpack over her shoulder and yanking the door open. Come in. Mason's not back yet, so we have the house to ourselves. The living room smelled faintly of pizza and old carpet. Mason had a huge TV mounted on the wall and a sound system that could probably shake the entire block. There was a stack of board games on the coffee table and pillows scattered around for seating. At first, it felt like a normal sleepover. We watched a few videos on YouTube, made fun of TikTok trends, and ate snacks while lying on the floor. By around 10:30, Harper suggested we explore the upstairs. I wasn't thrilled. I knew Mason's bedroom was off limits, but she said he wasn't home, so why not? Chloe and Lila agreed immediately, and I reluctantly followed. The hallway upstairs was narrow and smelled faintly of cedar. Mason's room was at the end, the door closed tight, the blinds drawn. Harper nudged it open just a crack. Inside, Mason's room was massive. A loft bed, posters covering most walls, and a few old boxes stacked in the corner. He had this vintage keyboard sitting by the window, half covered with a blanket. And then we saw it, on the floor by the closet, an old camera case. Harper picked it up and opened it. "I swear this wasn't here last time," she whispered. Inside was a small digital camera, one of those old flip-out screens, scratched but still working. "Let's see if it still works," she said, flipping the screen open. I laughed nervously as we pointed it at ourselves, taking silly pictures and videos, pretending we were reporters or vloggers. The flash was bright and harsh, making our faces look almost ghostly. Chloe dared me to go closer to the closet and peek inside, so I tiptoed, careful not to make a sound. Nothing. Just a pile of old clothes and some cardboard boxes. I turned back, grinning, and that's when I noticed it. A shadow, on the far side of the room, just by the door, standing perfectly still. "Did you guys see that?" I whispered, freezing. Harper and the others turned slowly. "See what?" Lila asked. "There's someone over there," I said, pointing, but the room was empty now, just the shadow of the floor lamp stretching along the carpet. My heart was racing. "It moved." Harper laughed it off. "It's probably the angle of the light or something." But I wasn't convinced. Something felt wrong, and I could tell Chloe and Lila were starting to feel it too. We tried to shake it off and kept taking pictures, but every time we looked at the camera screen, there was something odd. In one shot, I swear I could see a figure standing just behind Harper, watching her. Another time, there was a dark shape hovering near the window, even though no one was there. I blinked and checked around the room. Empty. "Okay, seriously," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Who's messing with the camera?" No one answered. Harper shook her head. "It's probably just dust or reflection," she said, but I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. We moved downstairs, trying to act normal, but I couldn't stop looking at the hallway. Something about the silence was heavy, the kind of quiet where you notice every little creak of the floorboards, every soft thump from the ceiling above. By midnight, we'd gathered in the living room to watch a movie, blankets wrapped around us. Mason still wasn't home. The street outside was empty, nothing but the occasional car passing by. I tried to laugh at the jokes the girls were making, but my mind kept drifting back to the shadow in the room upstairs. It was Chloe who first noticed it. "Do you guys hear that?" she whispered, ears pricked. We all paused. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from the staircase. "Probably Mason," Harper said, though her voice was a little too high, a little shaky. The footsteps stopped at the top of the stairs. I could see the faint glow of the hallway light hitting the carpet, but no one was coming down. Then, a shadow detached itself from the railing and moved across the landing. My stomach dropped. This wasn't Mason. I grabbed Harper's arm. "Go check," I hissed. She shook her head. "No, I'll..." But Chloe had already stood up and tiptoed toward the stairs. She froze halfway up. "Oh my God," she breathed. I went to look, and that's when I saw him. A man, tall, wearing dark clothes and a hoodie, standing perfectly still at the top of the stairs. The hood hid most of his face, but his stance, the way he just lingered, sent a chill straight down my spine. He wasn't moving, just watching. "Run," I whispered, voice trembling. "Right now." We bolted. Down the stairs, through the living room, out the back door. I don't even remember how we managed it without screaming so loudly we'd attract attention. Harper tripped over a rug, Lila yelped, and Chloe pulled us forward. The backyard wasn't huge, just enough for a garden and a small porch, but we didn't stop. We ran across the neighbor's lawn and pounded on their door. Mrs. Whitman opened, startled, and we shoved inside, breathing hard, heart racing. We told her everything at once, about the camera, the shadow, the footsteps. She immediately called 911. Within 10 minutes, police cars were swerving down the cul-de-sac, flashlights scanning every corner of Harper's house. When the officers finally came back, they let a man out in handcuffs. He wasn't Mason. He wasn't a neighbor either. Apparently, he'd been spotted wandering the area for days, asking people about tools and entry points. No criminal record, but the way he moved, the calm precision, made everyone uneasy. I remember the way he looked at the house, almost like he knew every corner before stepping in. Harper's parents came home soon after, frantic and apologetic. Mason didn't even seem surprised, just nodded when he saw the police car. "I didn't know anyone was there," he said simply, shrugging. We never went back to that house for sleepovers. Mason started keeping more strict rules, installed cameras, and spent the rest of the summer mostly at his friends' places. I, on the other hand, couldn't shake that night. Even now, years later, I still check every corner and closet when I stay at someone else's house. I still think about the way that man moved, the patience, the way he stood so still. And sometimes when I pass that street, I can't help but wonder if he's still out there, waiting, watching, knowing exactly where to be and when. I had never been the kind of person who liked sleepovers. I preferred quiet nights at home, scrolling through my phone or reading a book in peace. But last September, when all my friends were buzzing about a weekend at Madeline's, I didn't want to be left out. Madeline, Zoe, Lucas, and I had been hanging out since freshman year, and I had spent plenty of time at their houses. I knew it was going to be one of those epic sleepovers they always talked about, and somehow I agreed before I even fully thought about it. Madeline's house was at the edge of Willow Creek, in a neighborhood where lawns were trimmed, the streets were quiet, and kids rode bikes until the streetlights flickered on. Her parents were going away for the weekend, a work retreat somewhere uptown, and she had promised us freedom, movies, junk food, and music all night. When I got there Friday afternoon, the sun was just starting to drop behind the trees and the air smelled faintly of wet leaves and barbecue smoke from the houses down the street. Madeline opened the door with her usual grin. "Finally," she said. "I was about to text Zoe to come drag you here." Zoe and Lucas were already in the living room. Zoe sprawled on the couch, scrolling through her phone, headphones on, bobbing her head to whatever music she was listening to. Lucas, leaning against the wall like he always did, had that half smile that made you wonder what he was thinking. We dumped our bags, and Madeline ran upstairs to grab some snacks. The house smelled like pizza and that faintly sweet scent of carpet cleaner her mom always used. Everything felt normal at first. We played cards, argued over what movie to watch, and devoured a big bag of popcorn while the first movie started. Lucas kept checking his phone, scrolling, typing, then looking up at us like he had just remembered something. It was the kind of distracted behavior you usually ignore, but there was something in his gaze that felt off. The night went on, movies one after another. Zoe and I tried to make each other laugh, throwing popcorn into each other's mouths while Madeline lounged in the corner, half watching, half dozing. Then, around 11:30, there was a soft knock at the door. "Who the hell is that?" Zoe whispered, pausing the movie. I froze. None of us were expecting anyone. Lucas shrugged like it was no big deal. "Probably some neighbor or delivery," he said. But the knock came again, more deliberate this time, slow, like someone tapping just to see if we were listening. Madeline peeked through the peephole. "It's my cousin Ethan," she said casually. I hadn't met Ethan before. Madeline had mentioned him once, that he was a year older, in college, kind of quiet, but she never seemed particularly excited when she talked about him. Ethan stepped in like he owned the place, carrying a backpack and giving that same half-smirk Lucas had, the one that made it impossible to tell if he was joking or just bored. "Hey," he said. "Thought I'd drop by, heard there's a sleepover." We said hi. It felt weirdly like he didn't need permission to be there. He leaned against the wall, observing everything, nodding at the right moments, saying small things like, "Oh, that's funny," but never really engaging. At first it was just awkward, but as the night went on, that awkwardness turned into a quiet pressure. Around midnight, we decided to set up sleeping bags in the living room. The lights were dim, one lamp left on for comfort. Movies continued, but no one really paid attention anymore. Lucas had dozed off, Zoe was scrolling her phone, and Madeline was quietly munching on leftover pizza. I was half asleep when I noticed Ethan wasn't sitting with us. He was standing near the window, just staring outside. I nudged Zoe. Do you see him? I whispered. She nodded. Yeah, kinda creeping me out. I tried to shake it off. Maybe he was just watching the street. Maybe he didn't realize how tense it was making everyone. But then, he moved slightly closer to the couch, not talking, just watching us. I could feel my stomach knotting, my pulse going faster, but I didn't want to say anything. He's probably bored, I told myself. Then the notifications started. My phone buzzed and I saw a message from an unknown number. You like the corner spot, don't you? I froze. Zoe noticed my face and leaned over. Who's that from? I don't know. I felt my hands shake as I unlocked it, and a second message appeared a minute later. That's your spot on the couch. You always pick it. I've noticed. I tried to laugh it off, showing the screen to Zoe. Probably some stupid prank, I said, but the color drained from her face. Lucas stirred and mumbled, "Who's texting?" I didn't answer. I didn't even want to look at Ethan, but of course, my eyes found him. He was still near the window, arms crossed, watching, not staring directly at me, not smiling, just observing. The hair on my arms prickled, and my stomach dropped. Over the next hour, the messages kept coming. You like to stay up late. The popcorn was too salty, right? You always pick that movie first. At first it was just annoying. Then it started feeling like he had been inside my head. Every little thing we had done, every small preference, every casual comment, he knew it. I leaned toward Zoe. We need to leave. Leave? It's midnight, she whispered, voice shaky. I don't care. Something's wrong. I got up slowly, heart hammering, trying to think clearly. Ethan followed, but not too obviously. He moved from the window to the hallway, always staying at the edges of my vision. Every time I tried to turn my head to confront him, he was just far enough to seem innocent. The tension escalated when I realized something else. Madeline was acting weird too. She wasn't her usual calm, chatty self. Her movements were small, cautious, like she was aware of something I wasn't. Every time she spoke, she glanced at Ethan. I noticed the subtle nods, the way she tried to keep him included but not fully aware. By 1:30 a.m., the living room felt smaller, like the walls were pressing in. My phone buzzed again. Stop looking at me like that. It makes me laugh. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed Zoe's arm. We're leaving. Now. Zoe hesitated, looking at Lucas. Are you serious? Lucas rubbed his eyes. I guess. Yeah. Something's off. I ran for the door, Zoe right behind me, Lucas trailing, while Madeline stayed calm for a second, then finally said, Okay, fine. Go. We didn't even grab our bags. We just bolted out onto the porch and sprinted down the street. I didn't look back, not at the house, not at Ethan, not even at Madeline. My chest felt like it was going to explode and my legs were on fire, but the adrenaline kept me moving. We stopped at the corner where the streetlight flickered, breathing hard. Zoe's hands were shaking as she tried to unlock her phone. Lucas checked the text messages, and mine were still coming. Don't run. I can see you. I looked over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone following. But the street was empty. No Ethan, no Madeline. Nothing. Only the faint orange glow of the distant porch light and the soft rustle of leaves in the wind. We didn't talk much on the way home. The silence was heavy, broken only by our panting breaths. When I got inside my room, I locked the door, hid my phone under the pillow, and sat on the floor. I couldn't stop thinking about him, about how calm he had seemed, how casual, how normal. And yet, he knew everything about us, every little detail. How was that even possible? The next day, I tried calling Madeline. No answer. Zoe sent a text to her. What the hell happened last night? Still nothing. Lucas didn't say much either, just a short message. We need to be careful. Don't go over there again. A week later, I got another text. Same unknown number. You didn't even say goodbye properly. I'll wait. I showed it to my parents, and they suggested it could be a prank. Maybe someone hacked the phone. But it didn't feel like a prank. Too much was known, too many details that no random person could have guessed. I stopped hanging out with Madeline, Zoe, and Lucas for a while. I didn't want to go anywhere near that neighborhood. Even now, months later, I still get nervous when someone lingers too long, or when I notice someone watching me in public. And sometimes when I scroll through old photos from that night, group selfies on the couch, popcorn in our laps, I swear I can see a shadow in the background, just at the edge of the frame, not moving, not smiling, just watching. I don't know who he really was. I don't know why he picked us, why he knew so much about us, or how he had the ability to text us before we even moved. All I know is that when I think about that night, it's not the movies or the snacks or the jokes that come to mind. It's the way someone could be so close, so normal, and still make you feel completely powerless, like your whole world had shifted in an instant. I never went back to that part of town. I haven't gone over to Madeline's again, and I haven't hung out with them the same way. I check my phone before I fall asleep now, double-check windows and doors, and sometimes I catch myself looking over my shoulder in public, half expecting him to be there, standing, watching, just waiting. Because the worst part isn't that he was there. The worst part is that he could be anywhere now, and you'd never know until he wanted you to. I never wanted to go to the weekend at Julian's mansion. It was one of those invitations where everyone else was going, and I didn't want to be left out. Julian, Ethan, Olivia, and Ava had been talking about it for weeks, excited for a getaway in the countryside, in Julian's family's sprawling estate. I knew Julian only a little. We shared a couple of classes, and he was quiet, not shy, just distant in a way I couldn't read. But somehow, the idea of a long weekend with my friends overruled my gut instinct. The mansion itself looked like something from a Gothic novel. Peeling paint, overgrown gardens, and a tall wrought iron gate that groaned whenever it moved. It had been in Julian's family for generations, his mom said, and some locals whispered about it having a dark past, though none of us knew details. From the driveway, it looked like it hadn't been properly lived in for years. Except for Julian's room, I supposed. We arrived on Friday evening. Julian's mom waved us inside with a polite smile and a warning to stay out of rooms we weren't supposed to. "The attic is fine," she said, "but some parts of the house, best left alone." That seemed like a dare. The main hall smelled faintly of dust and old wood. Shadows stretched long across the floor as we unpacked our bags. Olivia, always the first to explore, immediately started wandering around while Ava and Ethan settled near the fireplace, talking quietly. I followed Julian up the stairs where the rooms had high ceilings and heavy curtains. His room was at the far end of the hall. That's where we found the mirror. It was antique, tall enough to reach almost the ceiling, framed in dark wood carved with strange, twisting patterns. At first I thought it was just old and dusty, but then I noticed something strange. The reflection didn't match the room exactly. Olivia leaned over to adjust her hair, and the mirror showed her standing too far to the left. Ethan picked up a magazine, and his reflection was holding it upside down. Is it just me, or is that mirror kind of off?" Ava whispered. Julian didn't answer at first. He stood too close, staring, like he expected something. "It's old," he said finally. "It probably just shifts the image a little, distorted glass." But that didn't explain the next thing. We all crowded around, joking nervously when the mirror flickered. The image of Olivia's hand moved a fraction of a second before she actually moved hers. Then the reflection of me, Emily, blinked once even though I hadn't. "It's creepy," I muttered. "It's like it's predicting what we're about to do." Julian laughed nervously. Probably just a trick of the light. But the light didn't explain what happened next. We spent the first night unpacking and exploring. The mansion was enormous, with winding corridors, dusty chandeliers, and rooms that smelled faintly of decay. By midnight, we'd all gathered in Julian's room, trying to ignore the mirror. We played card games, told stupid ghost stories and laughed, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching. That's when the mirror did something we couldn't ignore. I went to grab my water bottle from the floor, and in the reflection, my hand froze a second before I actually moved. Olivia gasped. "It's doing it again," she whispered. "It knows what we're going to do before we do it." A chill ran down my spine. Ethan tried to joke, waving his hand in front of it. Maybe it's haunted, or cursed, or I don't know, a spy mirror. But even as he said it, his reflection didn't mimic his movement immediately. It lagged, then jumped forward, showing him lowering his hand before he actually did. The air felt heavier, tighter. Something about the mirror seemed alive. We decided to explore the rest of the mansion, hoping it was just a trick of our minds. But the deeper we went, the stranger it got. In the dining hall, we found old paintings where the eyes seemed to follow us. Upstairs, doors that had been closed appeared slightly ajar, though we remembered locking them. And every time we passed Julian's room, the mirror's surface shimmered unnaturally, almost like water. By Saturday morning, the unease had grown unbearable. Olivia refused to go near the room, Ava kept glancing over her shoulder, and Ethan's jokes were increasingly hollow. Julian, however, seemed oddly calm, almost too calm. He spent long stretches staring at the mirror as if expecting it to show him something specific. It wasn't until later that afternoon that the mirror revealed something truly disturbing. We were gathered in Julian's room playing cards again. I glanced at the mirror and froze. Reflected in it, I saw something that wasn't there. A figure standing just behind Julian, tall, pale, faceless. Julian himself didn't flinch. My heart pounded. "Did you see that?" I whispered. Julian's calmness was unsettling. "See what?" he asked, not turning. "That, behind you," I said, "in the mirror." He looked down at the cards like he hadn't heard me. Olivia nudged me. Maybe it's just a trick like before. Reflections, light. But it wasn't a trick. Over the next hour, the mirror's images grew more precise, showing our movements, predicting them with unnerving accuracy. It even reflected arguments we hadn't had yet, whispers we hadn't spoken. Each of us started to feel like we weren't in control, like the mirror was moving us, shaping what we said and did. By Saturday evening, the tension was unbearable. Ava whispered to me, "It's like it knows everything, even things we haven't told each other." And then Julian started acting different. He became obsessed with the mirror, refusing to let anyone touch it, insisting it was important. His tone wasn't just protective, it was almost fearful. When we tried to ask what he meant, he brushed us off, saying, "You wouldn't understand." We realized we couldn't trust him. The mirror was changing him, or maybe revealing something about him we hadn't seen. Arguments broke out. Olivia accused Julian of hiding something. Ethan tried to mediate, and Ava glared at all of us in frustration. Then came the worst part. Late at night, I woke to see Julian standing in front of the mirror, chanting softly under his breath. His reflection wasn't matching him. It moved independently, gesturing with hands that he hadn't lifted, eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. I called out, and the image froze. Julian turned, staring at me with an expression I didn't recognize. Calm, satisfied, almost predatory. The mirror's surface rippled like water, and for a brief second I thought I saw the future. Olivia running down the hallway, screaming, Ava hiding in a corner, Ethan clutching his head as if hearing voices, and Julian, smiling as everything fell apart. I stumbled back. "What is this?" I shouted. "What are you doing?" He said nothing, just turned back to the mirror. The next day, things escalated. The reflections in the mirror started appearing outside the room. I caught glimpses of our own images in windows, in polished surfaces, sometimes seconds before real events occurred. The sense of inevitability was suffocating. We weren't just being observed, we were being manipulated. By Sunday morning, we were desperate. We tried to destroy the mirror, pulling at it, hitting the glass, but it wouldn't break. Even when the edges cracked slightly, the reflection remained perfect. That's when Julian admitted the truth, or at least part of it. "This mirror, it shows what will happen," he said quietly. "Or maybe, what someone wants to happen. It belonged to my great-grandfather. He believed it could predict the future and influence it. I wanted to leave, to run, but every exit felt smaller, narrower, as if the mansion itself was aware." Olivia whispered that she thought the mirror was controlling Julian, using him to control us. Ava agreed, tears in her eyes. Ethan tried to laugh it off, but his voice trembled. By the time we gathered our things to leave, the mirror had one final message. I glimpsed it from the hallway. Our reflections weren't ourselves anymore. They were twisted, distorted versions, grinning faces with eyes too wide, fingers reaching as if to pull us in. I turned to warn the others, but Julian had disappeared. We never saw him leave. Driving away, the mansion grew smaller in the distance, but the unease didn't fade. Each of us felt like a part of us had been left behind in that room, behind that mirror. Even now, months later, I wake at night thinking of that reflection. Emily. No, trapped, staring back at me with a smile I don't recognize. And sometimes I swear I hear Julian's voice, whispering from nowhere saying, "It's still waiting for you." The worst part? I'm not sure if it's the mirror in the mansion or the one in my mind. Either way, I haven't stopped seeing it, and I don't think I ever will.